Welcome back. I'm Reverend Bill Kunze, your host, and this evening I am talking with Dr. Nathaniel Williams, CEO of ChildFirst Services in Eastern Pennsylvania here. You were starting to talk about the residential services and the rich services provided with that. And during the break, I was asking, I wonder if you would talk a little bit of that, of exactly who you serve and the problems young people have.
Well, they span the myriad of issues. Some children have been neglected, some have been abused. A lot of the children struggle with education and embracing that as a pathway, and we really try to stress that because when you look at the general population, about 30% of Americans go on to higher education. About 1% to 2% of foster children ever go on to higher education. So we know that that's a way that you can neutralize some of the things you've gone through is by getting an education and getting some credentials. And we
like you?
I hope so. And one of the things that we do is we say to the kids, whatever credential, we don't care if it's being a barber, we don't care if you're going to go on to be a mortician, but whatever you can do to let people know you take your work seriously. So education is a major issue for a lot of our kids, and a lot of our kids come to be known as problems to the system is because they're not going to school. And a lot of them are in need of counseling and support and just trying to right size all the stuff that has happened in their life. Some of it is parents are no longer living, but that is few and far between where we don't have anyone in a child's life, but there are a fair amount of kids, too many children, that really no one has bellied up to the table to say, hey, I'm interested in this kid's future.
Mm-hmm. So they're living in these houses in various communities. They're going to school, correct, into school like everybody else, and they're, but their family is in the group home. Right?
Well, the staff is in the group home. The surrogate parents are there.
Yes.
Some children do go home, for holidays, for weekend visits to try to restore. And the purpose of the home visit is you're trying to get back that relationship and hopefully residency back at home with your family as well.
Is that the overall goal, reunification?
Yes.
With family of origin in some way?
Where possible. And what the system is now recognizing was we have to hold on as long as we can before we think about a child going out on their own. That our job is to try to help them find a family. One of the challenges is that when kids are in the system so long, they're so used to paid supports. And when those paid supports are taken away, they don't know how to navigate, and that's part of why they fail is because those paid supports disappear. So I think the system is having a healthy refocus on making sure that kids connect to families, and again, wherever they are. And we're not limited by geography anymore. It's not only the family that is in Delaware County or in Philadelphia. If you have family in Texas, they'll send the kid and do a interstate compact and send the kid to visit, and with the goal of hopefully one day residing there. So I think that's a good thing. I just hearken back to my phone call that I'm sure was made when I went into foster care. You call up my mother's brothers and sisters, my aunts and uncles, and say, do you want 10 children? Who's going to say yes to that, spanning from 2 years old to 16? I don't think anyone was going to say yes to that. But reality is I think you can find some family members that would say, hey, if there are 3 kids, I'll take 2. But again, we have to enlarge the geographic area that we're making those phone calls in, and that the system is doing that. And what they call that family finding, to find family wherever family is.
How do you get these kids? Do they come through? How do they come to you?
Sure. For any child to leave their home, a court is involved, and the Children and Youth Agency is involved. So Children and Youth can come in and say there's imminent danger, and they have to present that testimony to the court, and a judge is going to make that decision. So there's no child that's in placement with us that is without a court order. There are ways for families if they were in crisis and had other issues to place a child, generally through insurance, in psychiatric facilities. But for child welfare services, normally it is done through a court order and going back in front of a judge within 72 hours of the child leaving the home, and generally every 3 to 6 months thereafter.
Well, what are you trying to? I know you have got some large goals you're trying to do to affect the lives of the kids you serve and really the broader population. Some of those around education, I've read. You've started an endowment fund?
Well, it was already started. We had a small one, but we just affiliated with Baptist Children's Services. And one of the things that Baptist is doing is converting their operating support fund to an endowment fund for children who want to pursue higher education in other trade schools. So that's going to be a wonderful thing. They'll have somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 a year to give to foster children who are trying to pursue higher education or some other credentialing effort. So that to me is what we really need to try to do, because that's something that once you give a person knowledge, it's something that can't be taken away.
How many kids are coming out of your facilities that might be able to benefit from this every year?
Sure, there's somewhere between 5 and 10 every year of the 110 kids we have that are graduating and moving on. And one of the things that Baptist is looking at as an affiliate to us is, it could be other kids outside of ChildFirst children. So we want to look at any child who's in foster care that may need some additional support.
I understand that the Baptist affiliation is giving you some other interesting possibilities and strengths.
Well, yes. I mean, they were around for 136 years, and so when we merged, affiliated with them, and sitting down and getting all the archive stuff, the history is so very rich, and the lineage of caring is so profound. So just they have some real estate, they have an endowment fund, they have stuff that ChildFirst didn't have, and so we believe that through affiliating with each other, we're taking each other's strengths and making a strong union.
And some of it you had mentioned this in something right now. Are you succeeding in connecting them to church communities a little bit?
Well, and one of the things that we can't do that enough, and that's always been a major part, is making sure that there's some sort of connection there to their spiritual base. And so that's been a wonderful thing, and the churches have been so welcoming. And we have some children that are exploring what their religion is, and so that's wonderful. But that's one of those areas that we believe is very important, along with education, that spirituality is vitally important for the young children to make up their mind what they want to do, but to recognize there's a higher power that they're accountable to. We're not ashamed to encourage that.
Yeah, and of course they have all the doors open into at least Baptist congregation, but probably any Protestant congregation.
Sure.
One of the things I read about that one of your personal agendas is it related to trafficking. Yeah. We've had discussions about that here on Taking the Initiative. What are you doing? How are you engaged in and maybe we should explain what we mean by trafficking.
Sure. It's children that are involved in formerly known as prostitution, but a child can't prostitute themselves because they can't make that decision to do so. There's a power inequity, so that's why it's seen as child trafficking and not as something different. And what we've done is just opened up our homes and said, hey, if a child who has been involved in that needs a place to get support, please consider ChildFirst. And this summer, the FBI gave us an award for the work that we've done, and their agents who find these youngsters, they'll bring them to the Child Welfare Agency and ask that ChildFirst be looked at as a place for them to be. And we've done that for the last couple of years. But it's again another circumstance where a child has been victimized and taken advantage of. And what we're trying to do is to provide some support to let them know there's some other options in life, and that's not one that we'd want them to choose, no matter what options are left.
And trafficking, especially sex trafficking, it seems to be predominantly girls, but it's boys as well.
Exactly.
But that raises, for me, a question I never asked you earlier about genders in your housing. And so what's the story on that?
About 70% of our children are females, and about the other 30% are males. And one of the things that's interesting is a lot of times people will say, oh my Lord, the girls are so difficult to deal with, but we've found for the most part that they're not as challenging as the boys are. So that's been our makeup is about 70% girls, 30% boys.
Are the group homes gender specific?
Yes, they are.
Yes?
We don't want to replicate and keep ourselves in business by making more children. So each of the homes have children separated by sex.
And do you have both gender what do you call them? The staff, are they
And generally,
house parents?
yes,
or-
the house parents, and generally, whatever the sex of the child is also the sex of the staff.
Yes.
It just makes things a lot easier for everybody when that's the case.
Mm-hmm. Well, you probably have a lot more to talk about, and we only have a couple minutes left. I wonder if there's, some topic you want to say something about to the audience here tonight.
I think as we started out earlier in talking about the issue of care, and people asking what can I do? I'm just one person. But so was Mother Teresa one person. So was Martin Luther King one person. We just recently had the visit of the Pope, and we saw what one person. So please don't minimize what one person can do. But I think that just showing up and caring, if it's just bringing cupcakes to the daycare center to say, or a person that's returned home from the hospital, just to check in. So I think whatever we can do in our world and in the places we're going to just let people know that we care, I think will go a long, long way.
Do you need donations?
Sure, the support is always welcome and needed, and especially as we've worked on the scholarship fund, we'd like to give that opportunity to so many more children. So those kind of donations. We just got a donation for the holidays for the children and walked into the boardroom, and the place was full of bicycles. And so again, to see people's level of concern for children is wonderful. So whatever people can do, again, to show they care is more than welcome.
Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about your life. I understand on television you're known as Dr. Nat, so it's good to meet you and hear about your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. I'll be here same time, same place again next week.